Hey, Internet friend, it's me, Bradley G, here in the World Nurse Center headquarters of SynergyCafe, and my friend KCP. Dun, dun, dun. So today, I got to go hit my controls. I'm remote. How you doing, Casey?
Doing pretty good. He upgraded his MacBook Air to a new MacBook Air.
Yeah, I don't like change, and I got a new computer, and when you do that, everything changes.
Yep.
Everything it's hooked to and everything. But
right. And it still didn't solve the problem that you wanted to solve.
That's true. That's true. That's a
yeah. He was hoping to be able to use this as the camera, and the iPhone is possibly too old to be compatible. So he's gonna have to check with the Apple guys at the Genius Bar.
That's the one world order taking control, the Apple people keeping
control
of everything. Yes. I had to get new connector and new, and we're not even using the connector, but I still have it.
Right.
I still had to have it to access my remote hard drive with all the data from the last computer.
Yep. And now your AirPlay works.
And now we're hooked up AirPlay thanks to the techie. So we've got a guest today. His name is John Armstrong. I like that name. I wonder if it's his real name or if he just uses it for.
I'm sure it's his real name.
You sure? You never know.
Armstrong is a pretty classic name.
Yeah. Wasn't it the name of a tire? Armstrong Tires?
I don't know. Is it?
I don't know either. That doesn't matter. We'll ask John. But I connected with him back when I was doing the expos, and I think he exhibited with us a couple of times. He had another company, but now he's a coach and consultant.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he brings that through, because there's a big difference between a coach and a consultant. Do you agree?
Depends.
Depends. I
think it depends on the coach or the consultant.
I think a coach is kind of like pulling someone through with linguistics, whereas a consultant is saying, this is the way you should do it because I've been there, done that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas a coach hasn't necessarily done and been through what someone else is going through, but does know how to navigate the way through that.
Yeah.
But let me share something that John and I have been talking about. These are his, the hero's journey. Right now we're going up to, we got the ordinary, the question, the refusal, the guidance. And I think next Friday, he does this thing called Full Spectrum Fridays right there. And we are talking about all this stuff, and it's a series.
Yeah.
The camera's here. He was looking at the monitor.
Right. Well, I was looking at the monitor so I could see what you were posting.
Yeah, because it's so small. So let's go get John. He's in the green room enjoying some of our digital hors d'oeuvres, and they're all complimentary and very low-cal.
Right.
So let's get Mr. John. John, there he is. Good day.
Hey. Good morning. Good to see you guys.
Good morning. Great to see you.
Now, where are you this time? Last time I connected with you, you were in your car, and now you're locked in a shed in some remote location. Someone took you hostage.
It's so nice out. I wanted to go rooftop.
Oh.
And so I'm in the shade here overlooking downtown Minneapolis. And yeah, so I'm in the shade for probably what does that give me? About another 45 minutes. You can see that line. And then
nice.
Go down to the AC. Yeah.
The internet is
beautiful.
Cool. You can kind of go and do anything. I mean, you're just working from your phone today, are you?
Yeah, so I'm on laptop, hotspot, and just cranking out some projects. It's quiet. Nobody's up here because it's not like a party mode of the day. But so I can get some stuff done in the shade. And I got really excited where I got to go to work today. So I'm like, I can go upstairs. So,
yeah. Nice.
Well, I was telling Casey that how we're going to kind of merge these two things together. The things that I do, there are three things. Things that I do, the things that Casey does, and the things that you do. And I think the overall thing is it's about helping people.
Yeah.
And Casey does it with plant medicine and consulting and things and coaching on that realm of things. And you're doing it. What I think is really cool. Have you looked into his stuff much?
Yeah, we've had a good conversation about it before.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we talked about it.
Because he's doing these things, he calls them adventure quests,
Yeah,
where you kind of get out. And the cool thing about it, he doesn't like calling it a retreat, but the thing about getting out of your space into someplace
Right.
that's new and foreign.
yeah.
So he does these adventure quests.
Well, it goes back to that hero's journey that you showed.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about taking the hero's journey.
And he's literally doing it. He's
Yes.
bringing people on a journey. When's your next one coming up here, John?
End of January, we're going to Portugal for our inaugural Vision Quest.
January,
Sweet.
Portugal. Have you been to Portugal?
Let's see.
Trying to figure out if you've been there before.
Yes, because I've been through that region, and I'm not sure if I dipped into Portugal at any point.
Oh, I get it. You might have stepped over the border and came back.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those. I mean, that region of the world, you know, crossing borders is like crossing states on the East Coast. You know, one step here, Maryland, one step here. I mean, people have no clue how big the United States is unless they live here. Like, you know, they're basically like separate countries in Europe, you know?
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
why did you choose Portugal to go on your inaugural Vision Quest?
We're collaborating with Sonita Madison with Cruise Planners as a travel agent for this first trip. And she had recommended that because of, one, it's kind of a bucket list on the planet, but it's also got this incredible island off of Portugal. It is part of Portugal. It's called Madeira. And I think Madeira may be something like what we equivalent to a state or to a county. So exotic lands, reasonable tourist expectations, though we're going a little deeper than your average tourist adventure. Yeah. And I have talked to Casey about this.
You got another one scheduled too in November, I think you said, and that's the Norway one?
Yeah, it's so we're currently booking for Portugal, but we're looking at a year from now, August of 2025. It's still kind of in the works, but it might be a hut-to-hut adventure in Norway.
Oh, cool.
Well, I mentioned that because I know that Casey's interested in Norway.
I've been to Norway. I think Norway is absolutely beautiful. It's one of the very interesting places in the world that I've been, and I think Norway is just absolutely stunning. And one of the things that I did while I was in Norway is they took us out on a boat, and it was during a time of the year where the sun only dipped below the horizon for like, I think it was like an hour. So we were up until, we were out there until after midnight. And then we came back on the boat and it was still bright out. And I'm like, wow, does it ever get dark? And they're like, not really this time of year. It doesn't really get dark because the sun only dips below the horizon for a little while. And then it comes right back up. So I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning just watching what should have been a beautiful sunset. But it really wasn't. It wasn't ever fully setting. It was just gorgeous, and I was watching it over the water, and yeah.
So you can kind of watch the sun rise and the sun set at the same time.
It's kind of like you're watching this weird twilight period, but they get that all the time. They're further north than here, and yet it was funny because I was the only person there in shorts, and everybody there was like, it's cold. What are you doing in shorts? And I said, and they were like, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Minnesota. And they go, oh, that explains it. Norwegians are telling me, oh, yeah, that explains it.
That makes sense.
It was pretty funny. Yeah, they were talking about how it was just so cold here in Minnesota that, you know, the few of them that had actually experienced Minnesota, how it was way worse than anything they experienced.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
Now, John, you've got another thing that I don't know how you got a lot of things going on. I mean, actually events, and my background is in the event industry, so I know that it can get crazy. But you've got another thing that you do, an online Zoom, and I think you call it the Entrepreneurs Outpost. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I'll preface that to something you said earlier, is that, we do one thing, all of us, and that's serve people and helping people get to the next level where they want to get to and how they want to get there. So I think we're all kind of on a similar journey of supporting others while we, get to where we want to go. And so, I have a lot of different educational opportunities. And this week that's coming up, we've been doing this since, November or December. I'll have to look and see, because we're going to have an anniversary party. This is called the Entrepreneurs Outpost, and it's an online Zoom gathering. It's free. It's an open group format. You can drop in, head out when it works for you. It is guide, I guide it in terms of holding space. I kind of steer it, but what everybody brings to it brings it to kind of a mastermind style conversation. Most of the folks that are coming are solo entrepreneurs or executives that want to have, a safe place to have a confidential conversation, an authentic conversation, but at the same time have a brave space so we can talk real stuff and get to it right away within just an hour. And it's been jamming. We got some great entrepreneurs showing up every week, and there's a lot of magic that happens.
It's interesting
Sweet.
that you're bringing that up, because Casey and his wife Elizabeth and I have been talking about that kind of thing, that the whole networking thing is changing a little bit.
Yeah.
People are looking for a little more substance and a safe space to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got something that they might be doing. It would be in October. If you do
It would
something
be
like
in
that.
October, yeah. So the healing grief ritual, it seems to me like, and Elizabeth, like our community right now is just not looking for that. So, because this is the second time that we've tried to put it together, and we're 5 people short right now, and we're kind of down to the wire. So what we might do is we might just take that weekend, because we already have that weekend booked. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to take that weekend and we're going to turn it into a mastermind retreat for people who are looking to start, communities, much like yourself. So, and it's the same thing with, it's the same thing with Brad, yourself. Maybe, send you guys an invite, see if you guys want to go to this retreat. And we can all sit around together and talk about building communities and how this is working, what's not working, and kind of just figure out how we want to move forward in a positive fashion to keep affecting change. And I think that's really what we're all about, is affecting this change in people's minds and body and spirit, and helping them, as you said, reach that next level that they want to reach. And in order to do that effectively, of course, we have to keep seeking ourselves. And that's a big goal, is that seeking yourself. And, there's a lot to it. My wife calls me a shaman, and she uses that word. I don't usually use that word about myself. She made a very good argument about it last night, though. We were actually talking about it last night, and she was playing this video back about, what the terminology of shaman is from this person who had a very interesting point of view about it. And there was a lot of stuff that she was hitting like the nail on the head. So here's my point. I think we all have terminology on what we call ourselves, but that isn't, that's because society right now and our language right now lacks a single word that could really explain us. So we use a lot of words to describe what it is that we do. And really at the heart of it, we are evolution at play. We as individuals are trying in this space right now to help people in a very powerful manner be able to evolve our minds, to evolve our spirit, to evolve our psyche into this new space that we're finding ourselves in. And I think a lot of us through COVID and through other different things that have happened into our lives in the last 10 years, we have found ourselves in a world that is craving that is craving this new evolution of spirit, if you will. And that's great. And so I'm just really looking forward to sitting down and meeting with a lot of people in one room that are working in this fashion and talking with them about it. It's going to be good. I'm glad that it's going in this direction, actually.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting shift that's happening with the way that people are learning. For a while, it was like all of a sudden you got the access to the internet, and anybody that has any kind of expertise, they can kind of throw it on the table and do their webinars and their live things. But now the validity of the person that's doing it, do they really know what they're talking about?
Right.
And that's changing a little bit because some people didn't really like. Quick example is you got some people in that MLM world, the network marketing stuff, and because they have a health and wellness product, they position themselves as a health and wellness coach, and they really don't understand coaching or really health and wellness. They're just trying to make money, and they're saying, I'm a life coach. And they just kind of create that label. Whereas like sometimes there's some certification, and sometimes there's the school of hard knocks where you learned it, you're street smart.
Right.
And
and that's kind of the part that you need for doing what we do, right?
That's what I was circling back.
I mean,
that's what I was
John here too, because if you group it all together like that, the school of hard knocks is kind of what you need.
Well, it's like the certification. That's what I was coming back to. The title of being a shaman.
Yeah.
They don't have any certification. They don't got.
There is no certification.
There's no plaque up on the wall.
That is the school of hard knocks.
But they've been there, done that. So
right.
It's a different story. It's like I learned that on my ayahuasca trip.
Yeah.
They have this weird spidey sense, I guess you might call it.
Right. And John's hero's journey is a very similar thing. I mean, you're taking people out, you're walking them along a path, and I think you used the word vision quest.
Adventure quest, right, John?
Yeah, we looked into and wanted to be really respectful that Vision Quest is a Native American term, and so we did not want to infringe on something that doesn't belong. And I was an adventure educator in my 20s, and so it just seemed to evolve that into, it's an inner quest while in an outer journey, and so adventure quest seemed to kind of resonate. And it's to your point, Casey. I'm just your phrase, evolution at play. Yeah, went so deep into me when you said that because. And I appreciate your resiliency and creativity and attentiveness to evolving with this weekend workshop it's emerging, right? It's your second one and you're rolling. Well, what is this thing? Because I think that is, a shamanic quality to kind of be with what's unfolding. And you talked earlier, Brad, about coaching and consulting. And I agree with what you guys are saying, that the consultant typically comes from a top-down intellectual distribution of knowledge. And there's some respect we need to give that. There's experience and maybe some certifications you're saying. And the coach is the one who's been through transformation of any kind, of physical, mental, emotional, health, relationship, career, and they know kind of the journey through a transformation process. And I know both of you have those faculties of coaching yourself through a transformation or others. And so, being willing as coaches to go into the unknown with our fellow community members, our clients, our community, and go into that unknown, what's going to evolve here in a safe and brave way, it adds growth for everybody, authenticity, and creates community outside of the mainstream education model.
Yeah, I agree. I think our mainstream education model is kind of, it has its place. It has its place. But I think we have evolved to a point now where that information and a lot of that, what they teach, it's shifted so much away from its origination. And part of its origination was to teach people life skills that they need, right? They've gone far afield from that now. I mean, they don't really teach the life skills anymore. They expect that to be taught back at home. But the fact that it's been taught inside an institution for so long means that it's not really taught at home very well anymore. So now we're coming back to this kind of spiritual seeking manner, and this seeking in a way about these life skills that people don't necessarily have, and we're seeking people who can teach that. And it's pretty awesome, I think, that we've arrived at this point where we're starting to seek elders once again.
Mentors, coaches, yep. Professional guides.
It's getting to be almost more personalized. You got, say, 30 kids in a classroom. They all have different interests, and it's not about reading, writing, arithmetic anymore. It's like, I want to be X, and you got to find that person that's going to align with it. So almost a specialized teacher is what ends up happening, and maybe more special guests should come into a teaching environment and teach about a specific thing. Like special guest John Armstrong comes into some third grade classroom and says, "Would you like to do X?"
Right.
Yeah.
Just a different approach, because the internet has made everything accessible to everybody all over the world, and it's just gotten so. I mean, you can find anything about anything everywhere at the same time. It's just overwhelming. So how do you? I run into that. I mean, you got that shiny object syndrome. That's because there's a lot of shiny objects.
Right.
Try and stay focused on something, and there's too many other options and opportunities.
Yeah.
So finding places, and maybe you find, okay, who has an interest in a certain topic, and then those people could help in that area. John, do you do something like that with your group? Do you have a special like category that they fall into, or is when someone wants to go over to Portugal, they are veterinarians or doctors or construction workers or painters, or is it a spectrum all over?
So on the outside, that doesn't make as much difference, other than 18 years is kind of the cutoff. They have to be older than 18 or older. But the psychographic or the human graphic for the dentist, the doctor, the solopreneur, the executive, is somebody who is growth oriented. We've been talking to somebody who's a seeker. Somebody who wants to look inside. We've been talking about this curricula, this life skills, in full spectrum, we call it self-mastery or personal mastery practices. And it's the person who has an aspiration to define that for themselves. Maybe they're a young adult, maybe they're a professional, they got some establishedness and they want to kind of look at, well, where do I want to go from here? Or maybe it's somebody retiring from a career or wanting to make a career transition, and they want to redesign their life. So all those are some personal mastery practices and skills to kind of balance what are we doing on the outside with what we're going to do on the inner landscape of our lives.
This is off topic, but I wanted to interject and let you know, John, that Casey and I go for a whole hour. So if you need to get going or whatever, totally understand it. And then we can kind of pick up and talk about you while you're gone. So if you needed to get some real work done, because I know that normally when I do the Synergy Cafes, they're about 20 minutes, but just want to let you know that.
Well, thank you. This would probably be a good segue, because I could talk to you guys for the entire hour, but I've not allotted for that. So, but I do want to give a shout out to both of what you both do for the people in your community, your clients. I liked where we started the hour just talking about we serve people, and there is a magic to, who is our next person we can serve, whether they're a neighbor, a family member, or a client. And I think you're onto something, Casey, about this professional networking seems to be morphing more into community building, which is super organic, super authentic. And it becomes sacred, because you're building a relationship with somebody, whether you're getting to know them a little better or if you've never met them, and you start building this know, like, and trust, and then creativity from that. And I think, just like this conversation, I could stay and keep talking, but I have other commitments to follow through on. But I really want to celebrate, getting to know both you guys, being on the journey with you guys, and all the people you're touching. And again, Casey, your willingness to kind of stay with the offering as it unfolds and transforms, and being open to where it's taking you, where it's taking your customers and clients, and let me know. I'd love to come if I'm in town that weekend. And yeah, appreciate both
Sure.
you guys. Thank you for the invitation here.
Okay, John.
Yeah, thanks, John.
I'm
Glad you
gonna
got to join us.
I'm gonna let you go into the green room and launch in there, and feel free to grab as much of those digital hors d'oeuvres and stuff as you'd like. All
All right, you guys.
Peace.
Safe travels. Be well, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
There you have it. That's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doing it this format. I think.
Yeah, I like the new format. If any of the rest of you like the new format and you'd like to see more of this and hear more of us talking to these unique people, let us know. Comments are worth so much more than likes. So, hitting the like doesn't really tell us anything. Make sure you comment, let us know, hey, this is way better than your old format, or we hate this, go back to your old format. We liked it whenever you were random. Just whatever you guys feel about it. I don't really care. Just be constructive whenever you do it, because I don't really care what your opinion is as far as positive or negative. What I care about is what I can glean out of it that is informational.
Yeah. I like the new format because it brings in a third entity, which I think helps the synergy element of it, which is actually not a third, it's a third person, but you and I are using one device, one camera here.
Yep.
And then John has his own device over in Minneapolis. So that creates some synergy there.
Yeah.
So I like bringing in another person, and maybe we set up another camera with another platform or something.
Oh, we could. Yeah. We almost had
thing.
We almost had my wife join us tonight because she was in here doing a photo shoot right before we began. And she was like, well, I don't know. The baby seems to be a little bit too loud and talkative right now.
You never know.
But yeah, I mean, it's nice having more people on. You get to talk about things like that. I think a half an hour would have been a little bit too short to be able to have another person on during that half an hour, though. Because it was... What John was only on for 25 minutes?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. So what I was saying is I think having another person, so if we would have had Elizabeth here, I think that would have been too much for that 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it was just right.
It would. I think it gets to be too much. It's kind of like me personally, when I go and do an event, I like a one-on-one. Maybe a third person like John. But when you get past that, I get quiet.
Yeah.
Because it gets to be too many different topics, and somebody that is more energetic and charismatic might take over the conversation.
That's going to be Elizabeth every time.
Yeah. That kind of thing. And then I kind of just fade back.
Yep. I do the same thing. I'm the same way. I like fading into the background. Elizabeth and I, we have totally different ways of approaching things. She's like the type of person who will walk up to every single person in the room. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. Hi, I'm Elizabeth.
Right.
And she goes and meets people, and she's amazing at that. She's so amazing at that. I respect it. Whereas myself, and I think you're this way too, I'd rather go sit in the corner and wait for people to come to me.
Either that, or I just like to observe.
Yeah.
And the way I do it business-wise is I will find the event, and I will then invite people that I want to see.
Yeah.
So the free creative mornings thing, they do that once a month all over the world. They do it oftentimes here in Minneapolis. And sometimes it's really close to where I live. I've invited Elizabeth to it. And in fact, I've invited John to it. And my other friend, Brad Traeger, and I think Joshua has been to it too, Joshua Peters. But
Sweet.
What I do, this is part of my strategy.
Joshua Peters, we got on last week.
Yep. And when we do those cruises, I don't do the cruise. I used to, but there's too much risk in that. So I leverage someone else's event and then go on the event and invite the people that I want to talk to.
Right.
And then I can network or socialize with the people I want to talk to.
Right. So I think it's important to mention to our audience at this point is what kind of our purpose is. So we started doing this and we started talking about these sort of things because as individuals, we're seeking this kind of community growth, but we're also seeking very spiritual growth, and that path has a lot of learning to it. So we talk about the different modalities that we have experienced, the two of us, and we talk about other people's modalities and things that we're learning about and all that sort of stuff. And it's the reason why it was very random before, is because life throws a lot of different perspectives at you all at once. And for Brad and I, we don't like getting stuck in our own perspective. We actually like hearing other people's perspectives and other people's points of view. It doesn't even matter if we agree with them. We don't really care. The point is to hear other people's points of view and to hear what other people think. Because if we are myopic and we keep looking through only our window, that's the only portion of the world we're going to view. And then all of a sudden you get rid of all the walls and you start looking around and you realize that, you know, you're only seeing, you know, about 5 degrees of reality. And, you know, all the other degrees that are out there.
You give it 5 degrees of reality. It's not even that.
Yeah, well, I mean, a window is only going to give you that much of a perspective.
I'd
I mean,
say
you
1
can
millionth.
kind of go like this and glance around.
So you like that word too, myopic?
Well, myopic, I think, is a very good word descriptor for what's happening.
I like that word and plethora.
I love plethora. That's one of my favorite
two
words.
opposing
Actually,
things.
I use
You
that
got
one all the time.
Narrow-mindedness and all it is. But just so that people know from my marketing strategy for this is we talk about a lot of different things. And then I use that software to chop it all up. And when I upload that, I find out which title has the juice, which is kind of a key word. And then I can do stuff with that word that is helping to, like, early on in our conversations, you grew up in Los Angeles. So we talked about Los Angeles homeless people.
Yeah, because last time I went out there, it was insane.
That video got a lot of views on it.
Yeah.
So obviously there's something going on with the word of homelessness and Los Angeles and all that. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah,
so,
in the United States, it's really bad right now. The homeless rate is really high.
I can see why, because they're living in their cars and stuff. And RVs and,
yeah, we were talking about how people were parking their RVs and they would just leave their RVs there, and people were actually parking their RVs and then renting them out to people because these people couldn't afford anything else. So they would, and people were just parking their RVs too, and just
why not?
living out of their RVs.
They can't afford to drive them, so why not park it somewhere? Let somebody live in it.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. And I know on the riverbed, and I know this because my cousin was one of these people for a while. On the riverbed, you know, since it never rains in California.
I lost my microphone.
Oh, you lost your mic. You got to fix that.
I lost my microphone. Sorry.
So I was saying, like, my cousin for a while was living out of the riverbed there in Southern California. It never rains. If it rains, you gotta get everything out of there. But it never rains there. So, like, yeah, it's kind of insane. Like, they can just camp in the riverbed, and they have these encampments there, and people have tents there, and solar panels, and a TV. Like, I'm not even kidding you. These people are like glamping it.
Well, you know, let's talk a little bit about that, because houses are expensive. It's apartments. It's crazy, and there's people that just haven't quite got that. And all it takes is $1 to be short, a penny. All it takes is a penny to be short. I don't have enough for rent, and you could get evicted.
To end up on your ass. Yeah,
it could happen.
Yeah,
to
it's totally anybody. True.
So what if instead of you say, hey, you can't be pitching a tent in this encampment, what if they just decided to take a lot of this land and say, this is a campground? It's a hippie, what do you call it? Like a cultural place.
Yeah.
To make it a little bit better, I mean.
So when I was a kid, right, my dad and we used to go camping a lot, and it was not hard. We would get a map and we'd pick a place, and then we'd go out there and go camp. And as long as it was public lands, nobody cared. It was really easy to camp. They didn't start all of these like rules about having to register to camp and all a bunch of this crap. They didn't start that until way later. They didn't start that until I think it was like the late 90s or 2000s. And then now, like, you basically have to register to camp anytime you camp anywhere for the most part. Now, that's not always the case. There are a lot of people who now live off the land with the internet the way that it is, and you can do it from a cell phone, and you can carry all the equipment with you that you need. There's a lot of people who are actually moving towards, I don't want to say backwards, because it's actually forwards.
It is.
They're moving towards a nomadic lifestyle again, a simplistic lifestyle, and these are people who wouldn't mind community. It's just that they want to live in nature. They actually are doing this on purpose. And I've mentioned this person that I watch sometimes before. She's a really interesting person. So she worked a job for a while when she was young and just decided, I am going to live in the wild. That is what I want to do. And everybody calls her homeless. Oh, you're choosing to be homeless. No, she's not choosing to be homeless. She's choosing to live in the wild. She saved up all of her money for, I think it was like a year and a half. And she needed I think it was somewhere near 20 grand. It was like 15 to 20 grand to buy all of her equipment. So she bought like really high-end tent where basically repairing on it, it's going to be able to last her a lifetime. She bought herself a nice little stove. She bought herself, and it's one of those stoves that gives off a lot of heat that people use in those big tents.
Well, there's varying degrees of homelessness, and I think some people think, okay, homeless, you're living on concrete and you don't have a change of clothes.
Right.
There are people that are a little bit mentally disturbed or mentally ill.
Right.
That maybe they need help too. Why should they freeze to death? Because winter's coming here in Minnesota. So maybe there's somebody out there that is very well off, and they've got some land, and they can take an old pole barn and heat it up, and they can put some portable restrooms and stuff on there, and it's on private land. So it doesn't need to be regulated. Be monitored so that you see what's going on there and you don't got craziness going on, or policed, you might call it. Police without a uniform. Just governed might be the terminology. But not with government in, because government ends up going, okay, across the board, anybody did I lose that? I lost my microphone again.
No, it's right there.
What fell?
It's connected.
Okay, it scared me.
You're good.
I thought I lost my umbilical cord, my verbal umbilical cord.
That's funny.
Okay. Oh, okay. I lost my train of thought because of that. But I think that, what I was getting at is sometimes someone comes up with the solution to this.
Mm-hmm.
They're homeless, therefore we got to put them in a house. No, they just want to be warm. They want some food. So all they need to be in is in a space that's kind of okay. So I see a lot of people with their RVs that are just sitting there. Why not? You don't want crazy drug addicted people living in your RV, but maybe you, what's the word? You kind of qualify them to make sure they're vetted and they're going to be okay, just like a renter. And why not? Because you can't afford to drive it up to Lake Superior. Why not park it somewhere and let someone live there?
Well, I have a pop-up camper, and last year I had a friend who ended up in a really bad situation, and he lost his place to live
there.
And I totally just pulled out the pop-up camper, popped the whole thing up, and people who know me know that I'm a little crazy in this way, but we had, there were 6 people, I've got 6 kids and 2 adults living out of the house. So
he's got a family that's basically a small rural community.
So, exactly. So, it wasn't really possible to have him, live in our house. And I don't really want anyone in my space anymore. But, I have a pop-up camper. It has its own sink. I was able to hook up a sink for him, so he could, have a little bit of running water in there. It even has a little heater and stuff like that. I didn't have to turn on the heat during that time of year. I didn't want the heat on. I actually was like, okay, we're going to want some more of that. And I just let him use the bathroom. And we only have one bathroom, so it was even a little insane for me to do that.
So there's a perfect opportunity for something like that.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about for somebody to do that. I mean, it's not really
and even something like that, if the government needed to get involved, there could be government subsidies for people like you that have that extra piece of property that might help this person that doesn't have a place to live.
Yeah.
There's ways of doing things, but as soon as the government gets in, they blanket the whole thing and they say everybody that's homeless is in this category. And
they also want their money. That's a big thing about the government. They want their money.
It's not their money, it's our money.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. They want our money. That's exactly what it is. They're like, hey, you have to give us our cut. Otherwise, we're going to beat down your door.
Yeah, they want to filter it through a good cause.
It's like dealing with the mafia, you know, like they want you to, they walk into your place of business and like, yeah, you have a nice place of business here. Do you want to keep it that way?
That it is that way though.
Yeah.
But, I think there's some, like Trump said, drain the swamp. And some like just eliminating different departments and stuff in the government. But you need to go inside there and figure out who's doing the wrong thing here. I mean, we're on a different topic now, but the whole
well, it's still about evolving what we think of as far as our reality goes. That is kind of why we started this, is we want to help stretch people's understanding of what it means to be human. And I think right now there's this huge stigma against quote unquote being homeless. But that's why I was mentioning this gal. She spent well over 10 grand on all of her equipment, and she's got 2 horses. And she treks all across the western United States in the, Iowa, Colorado, Idaho, Colorado Rockies, like, I don't know, my geography is failing me right this second, but over in that whole region,
on the west side.
On the west side, yeah. So she's like all around there in this area. Utah, that's the word I was thinking of. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and all of these places over there, she's going through and she's roaming, and she sets up her camp, and she takes like roadkill. Sometimes she'll harvest something herself, but most of the time she'll like find roadkill, and she's like, oh, okay, well, it's not far gone. I can totally take care of the pelt on this. And she makes pelts to live, like, so she keeps the leather from it and makes her own leather and everything else, completely living off the land. I mean, we're talking about old Native American style living off the land. And it's like a wonderful way to live. There's nothing wrong with that way of living. And yet there's a bunch of people who are like, what are you going to do whenever you need healthcare? And she's like, I'll deal with it.
Well, that's a programming thing, thinking that we all need healthcare. What we need is someone to redo the food thing. The preservatives and stuff. The grocery store is full of toxic crap.
Right.
That's the health. That's a whole nother topic. But I want to.
Humans are traditionally very healthy creatures.
Well, they do have the ability to heal naturally.
Yeah.
But I would like to talk about the spectrum of homelessness.
Yes.
On the upside here, you've got the people that are multimillionaires that for some reason they've got $7 or $12 billion houses.
Yeah.
And then you've got the people that don't even have a sleeping bag and they're just laying on a bench. And they're kind of okay with it because they're crazy. They need help psychologically.
Yeah, those are the people who usually can't take care of themselves.
And they're
the ones who need some help.
And then there's the people like the woman you're talking about that she has some skills.
Oh yeah.
And she just decided to be a nomad.
She lives like a hobo. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the hobos, the people that just jump on trains and travel and stuff like that.
Yep.
That's invading.
There's not very many of them left, but there are hobos still. I've talked to a few.
Yeah, but they're doing some things, sometimes getting on those trains. They shouldn't be doing that kind of thing because it's not their property.
That's what they say. But I mean, the reality of the situation, it's traveling to and fro whenever it's going. All they're really doing is jumping on and then getting off at another stop.
I know, but what
I'm
getting at is if they change it, instead of the Burlington Northern or Sioux Line Railroad or whatever saying, you can't be jumping on our trains. What if they said, go ahead. We got these things that are just flat cars, as long as you're safe and everything.
Right.
Empty box car. Why not just go ahead?
Yeah. Who cares? Don't leave, shit and piss on the inside of it.
Yeah, and don't make it. Don't make it dangerous. Make it safe. Figure out a way of doing that, and then you could kind of do that thing.
Well, the hobo culture, I understand why they were a little more strict about it back in the day, because, there was murders and rapes and pillaging that would happen.
I know, but you could
in that culture, but it didn't necessarily It didn't mean that it would have to have that.
No, because now you're involved with it and it quits happening. You don't got that stuff going on because those types of people should be prosecuted or taken and
Right.
educated so they don't do that kind of shit.
Right.
So sometimes you got to just set these things up as traps, decoys to catch these people.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, you know, to your point, there is a whole scale there. There's you know, we have at one end of it, you have the people that can't take care of themselves. Then you go to the people who choose to live that way. And then you go to the people who live very minimalistically. They have a home, they have a place to live, they may even have a giant property, but they choose to live incredibly minimalistically. And there's a lot of people in that spectrum. There is a lot of people.
And some people that just fell on hard times and need a pop-up tent to hang out with for a few months.
Yep.
There's other people that might want to live in someone's RV because you're not using it for a cheaper price. There's probably people that have, like couch surfing. That was a popular thing for a while. You just get on a website and find somebody. Yeah, I want to take off to Portugal or Norway or Bali.
Right.
Yeah, you hang out here for a couple of days. That's fine by me.
Back in the 1970s, the YMCA was different than what they have now.
It was more hostels, kind of.
They had some hostels. They would have a cot. You could actually go, and it was cheap. It was as cheap as a meal. And you can go there, you could have a meal, you get a cot, you can get a shower. They would even give you access to a phone so you could find a job if you wanted to find a job. They would give you a leg up in your community, and they would actually help you find these things so that way you could actually get out of whatever negative situation you were in. So there used to be a lot more help for this kind of stuff.
Let me talk about that a little bit because my brain goes into, because some people think, okay, the government could could create something like that. Now
they try to, and then that's why they don't have.
But it doesn't work good when they do it when the government does it. But if the government took our tax dollars and subsidized something like that, then a entrepreneur, some kind of capitalist, could create something that helped people like that. Now, some people think capitalist, oh, that's capitalism, that's bad. I think it's bad when there's greed and gluttony, where they're just doing too much. They're capitalizing on wars and creating more missiles and bombs. That's a different kind of capitalist.
A lot of people misunderstand the term capitalization.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So I would say more of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So you got some kind of guy that's got this great idea.
You're talking laissez-faire.
Huh?
Laissez-faire economics, meaning it's more free form.
Well, it is free for the creative entrepreneur to come up with an idea.
Yeah.
Like the thing you're just talking about.
I don't even think we need subsidies for that. I think they just need to give us our money back and we'll figure it out, because, you know, we had all this crap figured out until they started taking all of our money.
Well, that's how the subsidy would be distributed.
A lot of people look at the 1970s and 1980s and they're like, the 1980s were amazing. The 1970s were getting to be pretty amazing. And people look at the 1980s and they're like, oh man, that was awesome. Well, I tell you, there was less taxes, there was less of all these kinds of things, and there was more help for people back then than there is now. And I can tell you that, having grown up in that time frame, the more that government has gotten involved, the more money they take from the people, the less we have of these things, because the money's not in our pockets anymore. And the government's like, oh, I need it so I can blow people up, or I need it so I can police these things. We don't need that. We just need the freedom to be able to do it ourselves. And that's really where I come into it. Okay. I am definitely philosophically a libertarian. Like, there's a big L libertarian, which is Libertarian Party, and then there's little L libertarian, right, which is more philosophically liberated.
Well, let's talk about those two different elements. Is you either have the government subsidize something, which is basically taking our tax dollars and putting it into a pool, and then they subsidize it, or...
But you have to pay all the middlemen, too. So you're losing a large portion of it.
Sure. And that's why I said or. So then there's the or, we don't pay those taxes anyways. We just get rid of the... Like, yeah. This is kind of drastic, but say the educational system. You were homeschooling. Well, what if we just got rid of the education system?
Yeah.
We're just going to homeschool everybody. Private schools, no more public schools.
That would end up well.
I know, but that's what I'm kind of saying. At least we got our tax dollars.
Right.
That's what you're going for, to liberate from taxes.
Yeah. So
That's what I mean. It's different depending on its education versus building an entrepreneurial.
So I should specify. I should specify here.
Yes, you should.
So when I'm talking about freeing us from tax slavery is a good term to put it, right? Freeing us from that, I'm talking about the federal government, whereas the federal government doesn't really subsidize as much of local education as people think. So yeah, there is some money that goes into local education, but local education gets funded from county level and state level and local level.
Local level,
right?
What?
So you have your local level governments,
Taxes?
Right? So usually the school district taxes their district.
Yeah, more taxes.
Off on their property tax. So basically it's like however much your property is worth, they usually charge you a percentage of that now a lot of people are going to say, yeah, I don't agree with that either. I think people should handle it all. Well, I understand why people would think that, but not everybody right now, because of the way we've been living, has the resources or skills to be able to transfer that to homeschooling. However, I don't think that all the money should necessarily be going to public schools. Now, here in Minnesota, we do have a thing that's actually pretty cool. So it's called Venture Academy, and it's basically a homeschooling option. You can sign up for it. They give you not as much as your individual taxes would be for your individual student, but they give you your money back, basically, a portion of it. And it's a lot. It's a lot. Like whenever you're homeschooling, because normally whenever you're going to a school, you have to pay for resources for your kids. It's not fully provided. Whereas in the Venture Academy, they're actually giving you resources that would normally go to a teacher. They're giving you those resources back to go buy things that you need for schooling.
So how does that work for someone like me that doesn't have any kids?
Well, it doesn't, but
okay.
So I'll get to that part. So my point is that I think that works really well. Like having a system where, yeah, you're subsidizing, because that's basically what it is. You and your community and the local areas subsidizing local schools and libraries, but then you offer for people to do these homeschooling, and if they want to do it themselves, and then you're giving them those funds. Here's why it helps somebody like yourself. You are very entrepreneurial. You work for business a lot for yourself. Now, yes, that business doesn't necessarily have to do with school-age children. However, you also want people in your community to be well educated, right? Because you want those kind of people to be the kind of people you're interacting with for your business. So whenever you have these types of opportunities available for younger people, provided that there are people who are taking advantage of them and everybody doesn't just go, we're not going to do anything, right? Then people are taking advantage of the ability to be able to learn these things. You're taking advantage of the fact that now you can dip into a pool who can have conversations with you.
A pool of people, not a pool of money.
Pool of people that are able to take advantage of communication skills at a level that is more educated. And that is where I think we as a society and we as a whole do actually dip into it. It's not the public education system, because the public education system doesn't really teach those things anymore. As much as they think they do, they really don't. The public education system teaches test taking. It teaches basic arithmetic.
Yeah.
It teaches repetition. It teaches people how to work for other people, because it teaches them to listen and then follow along a certain path along a certain line, it doesn't really teach people how to think for themselves. It doesn't really teach people how to go out and find information. There are glaring exceptions. For example, my stepson from my previous marriage, he actually went to a high school where they taught the International Baccalaureate program. The International Baccalaureate program actually had sections where they would say, okay, now you have to go out and you have to do all your own work and you have to actually do like a dissertation on this. So they would expect a certain level of that. But the typical public education in the United States doesn't expect the thinking for yourself anymore. And that's where I think it's a little bit more rough, because we want that. And that is where I think having that option for the education system to now be able to give money back to people and to be able to give them that money in hand, to be able to utilize their own resources to develop that child. I think that's so much better, because they can go buy a microscope and go study, their own stuff. Like I have two of them. I have a stereoscopic, what do they call those? It's not a microscope. It's a stereoscope. No, it's but it does 3-dimensional objects. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now for some strange reason. Then you have your microscope, and I have a slide microscope as well that we got through that system. But here's other things that I've gotten through that system. That same, again, it's the Venture Academy system that they have here. And it's a bunch of boxing equipment, martial arts equipment to teach my kids self-defense. So I've been able to get all the pads and gear for them so they can do it and not get injured and actually, handle doing it on their own level without getting injured. And, all of these types of things, as they're being made available, allows them to be able to explore in a little bit more of an open fashion. Because do we see this being taught at schools? That would be a big no.
They wouldn't want to teach martial arts in schools.
They used to teach people firearm safety too, but they don't teach that anymore.
I know. No, they don't teach much anymore.
When you were a kid, they used to have, it's rare now. It still does exist in Minnesota, but it's really rare. But they used to have like skeet shooting, and marksmanship used to be a class.
I don't remember that when I was a kid, maybe earlier. But yeah.
I know people though that grew up here that are not much older than me.
Well, that's where
that experience that.
Everybody all has the different opinions of this stuff, and then when it ends up being a national education program, everybody's going to have their opinions. We're not going to teach anything like that in school,
and that's where it breaks down.
Right. That's why I'm saying, what if the money was in a pot, and then if someone wanted to teach that, they could say, okay, we're going to teach that.
Yeah.
Into the private sector. If you want, you're in this school, but I want to take this course on synchronized swimming, then you can do that. Or I want to take this course on martial arts. I want to take a course on outdoors and stuff, or living as a nomad.
Have you ever volunteered for any type of major group type thing in like a local government or like a local district or something like that? Like a governmental thing?
The closest I have is I was on the committee for the 49ers Days Fridley Festival, which had the city was involved with it.
Okay.
And interesting, because so no, I don't really like the government. I mean, I like the government if the government could govern, but they end up regulating. So it's a regularment instead of government.
I think that's very interesting.
No, I haven't. And here's the situation that happened with the 49ers Days. My background's in the event industry. When I was doing events, I would sell vendor space, and they would just apply to see if they're qualified. If they are qualified, they'd pay the fee and be done with it. Well, when the city got involved, they would have to get qualified. Then it has to go through some people to okay it. Then they have to do the payment. In order to do the payment, they have to fill out a form to get into the system to make the payment, which had a whole bunch of questions to ask, stuff that it's none of their business. And then they would then apply for a permit in the city, because you have to have a vendor permit. You can't just have people walking around. So you had to have a permit, and there's a lot of different permits in the city, not just a vendor permit to have a little table at an event, but there's a vendor, which is also looked at as like a solicitor. So you need a solicitor's permit. And then mixed in with all that is other types of permits like easements, and I'm going to build a storage locker, and I want to put in a driveway and expand all permits all over the place.
That's
so
crazy.
The vendor that normally wants to pay $20 and put up their little tchotchkes and sell them to the community has to jump through multiple hoops in the government, because they need to keep track and make sure that we don't have child abusers and pedophiles that are knocking on your door.
That's crazy.
It's not even relevant.
I think if you move the mouse, so that'll come back. We lost one of our moderators. That's all right. Anyways.
What's happening?
Probably.
No, that's your thing. But we're done.
Yeah, my thing.
We'll close this up.
Yeah, we're almost done. Yeah, that's true.
We're after 11 o'clock. We can't
Is
see
it
the
after?
screen. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We're after 12. So we've spent our hour. So I will close it with one last thing about that.
You close it off.
So I did a lot with local government, like this. I used to be on the city council and stuff like that. So we used to run committees and all this kind of stuff. We had a local committee here that we did for making a ball, right? We were like, it's really nice to have community events where you can go like meet people in the community and go like have a dance and meet.
I thought you were going to make a ball.
No, a ball, like
an event,
like,
a gala,
like a gala. Yeah, you can call it that. But yeah, it was intended to be dancing in this particular case, and I was mentioning that like it's really hard for things with for adults to like be able to hang out with more young adults, and like usually there's just not much crossover in your community. So I was like, hey, this would be a great event. Let's try this. Well, there was a series of things that ended up not working out very well with the ball that had to do with food and food service. Some of it due to regulation, some of it due to the person we picked. But that's irregardless of what I was getting at. The part that I was going to talk about was what happened in the committee. The more people that got involved, the less the vision was clear, because in governmental stuff, whenever everybody gets involved, all the citizens get involved and everything else, they have an equal seat at the table. They have to be heard. They have to be respected in the space, which is, of course, like that's just the way it should be. But then they also get a lot of say about how things run. So then what started out as a formal type ball, right? Like you should wear at least the suit and tie, if not come in a tux, in a nice dress and all that sort of stuff, ended up evolving into people saying that poor people can't afford that sort of stuff, and we don't have any minorities going because they can't afford suits, which of course is a funny argument, because
it's not funny at all.
I was an extremely poor person, and I was like, that's the first thing like you get whenever you're young, that you want to, go out on your own. They give you a suit as a gift.
It can be done.
You go out there and it's like, okay, like that's so you can go get a job.
Yeah. Okay.
But so anyway, so the point is that's what happens with the more people that you get involved, the more that the original concept and the original idea begins to devolve. And I do mean devolve, because an idea is extremely detailed and formed whenever you have 1 to 5 people who are all working towards a common goal, right? The more people you add that are equal, like on the table, right? So it's not like where there's one person in charge, but the more people that you add, the more diluted that concept gets, and the more that it begins to spread. So like the Department of Education is like, well, what's our core thing? What are we supposed to be doing? And then they have to figure that out instead of being like, well, our goal is actually to make people learn. They have this whole idea as to how they're supposed to do it, the way that it's supposed to happen in, and all these bunch of different things. And the only way they're able to keep that running is to control it. So you end up with a very free-form system. And then as it gets big, it begins to dilute. And then you have to figure out what your core aspect is. And then in order to stay relevant, because you're not really what it started as anymore, you now have to control the way that it works. Yeah. And that's why large scale stuff, it doesn't work the same way anymore.
That's a whole nother topic.
It is.
I totally get it. Let's sign it off.
Let's sign off.
We've had enough. We're gone for an hour.
Yep.
That's it.
All right.
How do we do this? How do we quit this thing?
Let's do it like Brad always says. Be good, be kind, be nice.
Yeah, be nice.